Okay, all right. So let's get started. The first item is around safety and conferences. And this is really meant to be a discussion because we understand it impacts a few different roles here. And Cale, Helena, Michael Mueller, and we had met a couple weeks ago to talk about um, safety and what we can do around safety, because that's one of the concerns that was brought up to us at the town hall. And we want to have a better answer for them next year. So, Kale, why don't you start, and then we can see if there are questions around the boundaries of it that come up.
Absolutely. So we've been discussing a series of initiatives. There's been a few that have been long in the wings that we've been working on, and a few upcoming. Among them has been the formation of the equity committee, the moving forward on creating guidelines for chairs, as there have been several issues that just data flow and getting chairs updated on what is needed in terms of equity, to help start to standardize that across all of our conference offerings. We also have been working pretty intensely on getting a allyship and bystander training program up and running, hopefully before this next CHI. That may take a few different routes, but ideally would be a pilot test for something that we'd like to launch as SIGCHI for all of our conferences, and provide a lot more sort of support on the ground awareness and techniques to help build safety at our conferences. We've been discussing aspects of accountability and what that might look like, how we might implement that and do that sort of ourselves safely. And yeah, it's really been a sort of joint effort between ourselves, as you can see, SIGCHI Cares. It's stemmed from a lot of what we're trying to implement here has stemmed from the equity talks that we've hosted, and a lot of gathered community feedback, and a lot of community engagement. So I'm not sure if there's something else that you really wanted me to speak to on those fronts in specific, Neha.
So depending on how much you've thought about it, I guess where it intersects with conference organizing, how this intersects with cares, that might also be helpful to understand.
Sure. Yeah. So because we're still looking at if there will be space and time before CHI or right at the outset of CHI to host a sort of bystander and allyship training program, that attendees can freely enroll in. This is in addition, sorry, by the way, to ACM's harassment and discrimination policies, which I believe have been also updated more recently, and there are more helpful tips that are sort of coming out. To give you a bit of background on that, and I'll jump back into the bystander training program. There have been questions and errors that, like, despite policy being set, and despite chains of communication for reporting being set, sometimes chairs aren't aware of that. So a lot of conference attendees aren't aware of that. Making sure that all the concerned and involved parties are up to date and informed so that they can know what they're consenting to. These have been snags with past conferences, and so streamlining reporting processes is one key aspect of making the sort of discrimination and harassment policies that we have in place actually effective. And yeah, so in addition to that, we have been really wanting and needing to build a culture around equity and accountability. And that does involve training, since a lot of us are coming from different contexts. A lot of us are coming from different levels of understanding, and leveling that playing field is sort of key. So we've been trying to get an in-person sort of workshop similar to what we held in CHI 2019, where a series of educational materials and slides are presented to interested attendees, similar to a workshop maybe, along different axes of oppression, being able to recognize what microaggressions are, how they, take different shapes and different forms, and then what you as a sort of bystander can do if you are witness to those sorts of things. That'll obviously also include training on what different reporting bodies are and what different reporting tracks are, as that's something that, in the midst of really awful things happening can sometimes be lost, or people cannot know who they're supposed to contact or who's available for support.
So question, you said we a few times, and I'm wondering who we is. So does we refer to EC members, to your committee, or to folks other than the EC?
So it refers, roughly to a loose network of folks. Myself, the equity committee that's in formation, as you mentioned earlier, SIGCHI Cares, Helena, and you and Michael and I have been in a number of talks around this, but we've also brought this up actually at several EC meetings with other chairs. And so, and then of course, on the ground, activists and people that have been pushing for these sorts of changes, I've been staying in contact with a number of them and trying to take guidance from them on how we should proceed.
So if it's a workshop at CHI, then either it would need to go through the workshops track, right? Which I guess the deadline is up for, or it would be something that we request explicitly, but we didn't include that in our set of requests that we sent to them in September. So I guess we would have to figure out what the format would be and then discuss that with the CHI chairs to see, is that possible even because we're past deadline? If not, one option we have is to do a SIG, because the SIG is kind of like a mini workshop and we still, the deadline is still out for that. So maybe a SIG is also a good idea because then it can invite other people into the conversation. They'll see it on the program as opposed to events that won't be on the program. But other thoughts about having this conversation or having, trying to test out these ideas at CHI here, maybe in your different roles or maybe even outside of your roles, if you have any thoughts, do you want to share?
Just add one last thing, and then yes, please send all of the thoughts my way. But yeah, we have, I've gone back and forth so many times around, should this be virtual? Should this be videos? Should this be in person? And there does seem to need to be some kind of hybrid balance there. There are in-person elements of this type of training that form those connections, allow people to better recognize the faces, voices, and people that are interested in being in those spaces and learning these things. So I think what we're going to do long term is try to establish this so that it can be virtual, that it can be an in-person sort of SIG, that it can also be offloaded into documentation for people's sort of intake at their own pace as well. But yeah.
And I think those decisions would need to be made with Kaiser and Albrecht, right? We would have to talk to them and see what are they even okay with.
They have been contacted. We're just waiting on, responses with things.
Any thoughts from anyone else? Susanna, Andrew?
No, thank you, Cale. And I see that I think we did hear back about their allyship efforts, right? And they're suggesting that we align those. So I think that they're well aware of the need for this, the CHI chairs. So they're looking forward to, I think, working with us. So that's good.
And I think we need to be clear that this is not just for Kai, right? It is for all of our conferences. Like this would be whatever we put together is going to be accessible to all of our conferences, especially those that don't have the resources to put together their own like allyship program and such. I mean, we did talk in our meeting about CSCW actually, because that's coming up. That's also all online, but it's also just too soon. So anything to add to that, Helena? No. Okay. Do you need input? Sorry, Susanna. Yeah.
That's a recommendation. I think this is exactly what you said. We should, in that sense, sort of see it how it can be streamlined with LA, but also the question how we softly introduce this as an opportunity to conferences, because we have conferences at very different sizes and opportunities, and are also maybe not so used to implementing things. So I think we should at least offer ways, easy path into it, and appreciating it, because as I also hear from other SIGs, for some it's a natural thing. Yes, super great that we have this, and others kind of, well, maybe feel a little bit, okay, why do we need this? Is that important for the community? I think you really have to see that people are at very different states with regard to appreciating and implementing that. And I think that we should respect and give conferences time.
I agree. I think scalability is a central concern, with the caveat that like there should be many entry points into this sort of terrain, but a standard and bar does need to be set, and that's where the accountability aspect comes in. And so figuring out what that balance will be, I think, can only take place after a few pilot runs of different programs.
I think that scalability is not going to be a concern in our term. I can promise you that. We're very far from having to worry about scaling. Right now, we're still trying to get information to conferences about programs that have existed for 6 to 10 years. So I think that's not something that you need to worry about right now. But to Susanna's point, I want to say a couple of things also, and one of them actually leads on to the next point in our agenda. So conference leadership has been sort of saying, we didn't know this and we didn't have this, and there's often confusion around ACM and SIGCHI being the same. So even among conference chairs for some of our smaller conferences. So that's something that led us to just kind of, I've been dumping these questions that come up into a SIGCHI conference handbook document on Slide, and that's a wiki of some sort that we can try to build out over time. It doesn't need to be finished, and it doesn't need to be now. But that's something for us to discuss later. And also I've spoken to Jillian about it, in fact, just today and also earlier. So the PM team could help us with that. There was one other thing about conferences. Oh yes, so the email that went out that I shared with everybody about the harassment policy, Susanna, that didn't go out to conference steering committees. It only goes to conference chairs and the EC. So if anyone else needs to see that, or if you think the steering committee chairs need to see that, then maybe you could share that email with them.
I think it generally, I think it's an important information, and also we maybe we'll come to that discussion point and at some other time as well. It's not necessarily only the question that chairs have the information, but also when, because sometimes they find out about this too late, or they're kind of irritated of what to do with it. So I think we will also wanted to have this plan of what is a good time plan of keeping also general chairs who are maybe new to SIGCHI conference organizations on track. And I think this should definitely be a message on that track. We could, of course, naturally just send it to all upcoming general chairs. That's an option. We have them on our list.
No, they've already sent, I think.
Okay.
I think that email already went out to the conference chairs, at least the ones that they have on record. But
Okay. But that should be a natural thing that conference chairs should be informed about, and we should decide what is early enough to keep them informed or to make them informed early, and not too early that they start kind of forgetting about this in all of their other conference issues. I think that is probably most of the challenging task to help them, with the bits and pieces they need to know at the right point in time.
and also the following chairs, right? Because they would not have this email, and we don't know if knowledge transfer would happen or not. I mean, there were a lot of conversations about this, for instance, when Helena was president, that I would not have seen, and people in the SIG governing board do often refer back to those conversations. But if I hadn't had that information from Helena, then I would not have known at all what that communication was. So we are relying on that knowledge transfer to happen. Anyway, so that's also maybe information that would go into the handbook. Should we close on this topic, Cale? Is there anything else to discuss here?
No, the last thing is just that we are finding the right date, but we will be holding a open session on safety for community input and feedback on our proposals, also as a way to just gather more folks who may be interested in forming a sort of task force around the programming and guidelines. So stay tuned for that.
And yeah, thank you. Thanks for doing that. And hopefully your upcoming equity committee can join you. And also, if you can think of other people who might be interested in engaging in this conversation just for one conversation, if not, for something more extended, that might be good as well. Okay, so cool. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is just miscellaneous updates, really. One update that I wanted to share from the SIG governing board was that the SIG governing board meeting was last Friday, and there were various agenda items around conference overhead, around just more broadly speaking, diversity, equity, and inclusion issues across SIGs. This is something that SIG leaders and ACM has been talking about more and more, and just where it shows up. So for instance, we talked about it with regards to the awards committees that look at ACM awards. And so just to say that these are discussions that are happening. One thing that we're hoping to do is work with some of the other SIGs to do like a cross SIG event where there might be alignment on certain issues. So SIGCAST had done a showcase of theirs where they had invited people from other SIGs. And so we were talking about doing like a cross SIG event that also included SIG Access and SIG-C, maybe some of the other SIGs. We also mentioned that at the SGB meeting. So that's something that might happen in the spring where we try to bring people from different SIGs together. And if you all have ties with other SIGs, like Susanna, you do, that might be something to just check with the boards of those SIGs to see if they'd like to do something together. The next thing on the agenda is updates on awards. So Andrew, over to you.
Thank you, Neha. So the awards cycle is now in full swing in the sense that we have an open call for positions on the various awards subcommittees. And so that open call has gone out with an email to the community, and Simona has been, and her team have been also publicizing this through various channels on a regular basis. So these should be going out maybe a couple times a week to the community. And so for all of us, if we know people that we would like to see on these committees, then I would ask everyone to please either encourage them to apply or nominate them yourselves for these committees. It's a nice opportunity. And then the open call for awards nominations should hopefully be up today or tomorrow. We're just finalizing that, and so that email should be going out to the community as well for nominations. Just so you know, the deadline will be December 5th to nominate people for awards. So that's all I have about that.
I was muted, sorry. Any other updates that anyone wants to share? So we have another open session on, sorry, someone said something.
This is Susan. I'm sorry I'm on a call instead of on Zoom because we're in the middle of the Delaware Bay. A question is, have you gotten much uptake, many people commenting or submitting for the with the open call, Andrew?
We had a couple of email messages in response. You know, someone said, "Thank you, I submitted my application," or, you know, and I must admit I haven't yet looked at the number of nominations that might have come in, but I can do that in the, you know, before the, well, I can do that very soon.
I think we have a few. Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
No, I was just going to say, if you need any help with that, let us know. Obviously, there's the general open calls, but then if there are specific people who you think would be particularly good or not good, let us know. Okay?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that help is needed. So this hopefully sounded like a call for help for me, because I think that's exactly what we're hoping. So thank you for bringing this up, and just to make sure that it's clear. Yes, the help is needed. So I hope that everybody thinks about who they think is, you know, would be good candidates, and please do reach out to them and encourage them to either apply or you know, submit that, you know, nominate them, please. So yes, thank you, Susan. That's a good point. So maybe I wasn't clear enough on this, but yes, this is my ask for everybody to think about who would be good to nominate, and please go ahead and I'm happy to help with that as well. So if you think that I should jump in to talk people into it, but yes, I would like help.
I think we have about 2 weeks, right, for the for people to submit nominations, either their own or someone else's. So if you can all, you know, even just suggest names, you could do that on our Slack, or just reach out to people yourself. But we have only 3 applications currently, so I think we would need more nominations.
When is the deadline for that?
Sorry, Susan, and then Helena.
I'm sorry, I just wonder, it's so hard when I can't see who's got raised hands and stuff.
Yeah.
When is the deadline for getting those award committees in line? I'm sorry if I missed it.
November 9th, I believe.
November 9th, okay.
Yeah.
We have the same chairs that we had before? So Sunny and, or not? Or?
Andrew?
Well, so one of the chairs rotated out, but otherwise, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Helena?
Andrew, so are you seeing people nominating folks, or are you seeing just people signing up themselves? You could just say you don't remember off the top of your head.
I'm actually on the page right now. So there's 1 nomination and 3 self-nominations.
Okay. I feel like this like really brings up, like, when we have an EC member who still doesn't know what the definition of an open call is, I think we need to come up with a new name for it. When folks think it's only for people stepping up about themselves, when really it's just a process to get as many potential names as possible. So like making it clear to folks that this is a part of the entire community to reflect on the fact that there's a position, an important position, and to put names in and say, or to go to their network and to encourage applications. And I just don't think that gets across. We see this every time, people being like, well, nobody stepped up and applied. That's not the point of the open call. It's the first or of many steps to get a large group of potential people. And then we can go through those people and make sure people are actually interested, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we just need to come up with a new name for it, a better defined process, and push it out again, because I think people just got stuck in this idea that open call just means people who want to apply.
Would there be a, Helena, maybe we can do this after the meeting too, but perhaps you can look at some of the wording that I put together for advertising this, and maybe you can suggest a different way to say that from Twitter to maybe I can certainly send out another email, right? Maybe. But why don't I reach out to you separately if you'd like, and then perhaps you can make suggestions.
One thing we heard yesterday at the open session for volunteering was also that everybody who came to the session came because of the email that they got. So I don't know how effective we are at reaching out to people through other means. And also, I mean, Sakai members' email always goes to my junk folder. So I don't know what to do about that. I don't think there's anything we can do about that. So maybe this is something that we can brainstorm about at the December meeting, Simone, to think about comms, especially once you have more people on your committee, to see how to just do more outreach, maybe. Okay, anything else? Any other updates before we close this session? Okay, all right.
Do you want
Yeah,
the
so
update on? Do you want the update on the partnerships, or are we going to wait and do that later?
we can wait, but would you like to give an update on the interaction special issue? Because that's, I guess, the work for that is done, right? And it'll be out soon.
Yes, the interaction special issue has been put to bed, to my knowledge, or maybe there are a few little things left. I don't know if any of the articles, I haven't heard back from the staff that there's anything at all outstanding on that. So that will be coming out, woo-hoo, in November, December. I'm working with them on getting the blog stuff set up, and you know, we'll take it from there. They wanted to get the issue done first, and then, you know, now they're going to start looking more at the blog. So, but that looks like we're well on our way. Yay!
Thank you, Susan, and thanks for all of your hard work. Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. We can close this meeting.